Hey guys, Heidi Preep here. Welcome back to my channel. I am wearing my new favorite shirt today. I don't know if you can see it, but it says it's never too late to do better on it. And I feel like at this point in my life, that is kind of my entire life motto. I am turning 30 this year, and I am absolutely nowhere in any capacity close to where I thought that I would be at age 30. And I kind of like that a lot for myself because I think that this year has been the single most humbling year of my life. It's a year where I had to kind of break down a lot of ego defenses, break down a lot of what used to work for me and find new pathways forward. And I think that humbled is the best feeling that we can feel, because I think that when we are humble, we are the most open to learning and growth and change that we will ever be at any point in our lives. This is one of the reasons, besides the fact that their brains are so elastic, why children learn so much, so fast, so effectively, right? Because they don't have this existing schema of the world to measure what they already know up against. So they retain so much information in such a small amount of time. And if we can learn to do that as adults, if we can learn to loosen the reins on our ego a bit and accept that we're perpetually beginners in a lot of ways, we can learn like that too. And that's a lot of what this video is going to be about. So anyways, for those of you who don't know me, I am the author of the Comprehensive ENFP Survival Guide and the Comprehensive INFP Survival Guide. You might also know me from the myriad articles that I used to write on MBTI for Thought Catalog, or you might know me because you met me traveling or on the street, or this video just popped up after you watched a Frank James video, in which case, welcome. It's wonderful to meet you. I'm so happy that however you ended up here, you ended up here. So today we're going to be talking about something that I think is such a recurring problem for anyone of any types. You don't have to be an ENFP to relate to this. In fact, this advice is pretty generalizable, but I want to speak through the lens of our cognitive functions just because that's what I do. And that's generally what I use this channel for. So we're going to talk about what it looks like when an ENFP is feeling stuck in life and what questions we need to be asking ourselves to kind of get things moving in a different direction. To say that I have felt stuck in my own life is a massive understatement. I am the master of holding on to things long after I should, and staying in situations thinking, I can make this better, I can fix this, I can get out of this rut, I can look at the past and remember what was and go, yeah, I can definitely recreate that in the future, not realizing that the context has shifted, that the situation I'm in calls for new skills to be developed. I am really good at holding on to things for way too long, so I personally find myself stuck in life a lot. This is something that I have had to learn to deal with over and over again in my life, to recognize, to bring awareness to, and then to start forming new strategies around. So I just wanted to share some of what's worked for me when I find myself in a spot where I'm stuck in life, or where I feel like I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over again without getting better results. Because I think that there are some really crucial questions we can ask ourselves during these periods that can help us expand our awareness into new areas, and those new areas will become the route forward. So this can be applied to relationships, it can be applied to jobs, it can be applied to living situations, it can be applied to lifestyle preferences. Literally absolutely any area where you feel like you're kind of spinning your wheels. And if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you already kind of know which area you want to focus your attention on during this video, but it could be many areas. So a lot of times in my life, I have had this feeling of, I feel kind of stuck and like I don't know where to go next, but I can't even identify what needs to change. Is it my job? Is it my mindset? Is it my relationship? Is it my social circle? Is it where I'm living? Is it what I'm doing? And that feeling can be super overwhelming. So not even knowing where to start is one of the biggest things that I think keeps us stuck, and that's totally fine. So if you're watching this and you feel that feeling of I'm not progressing or moving towards the things I want in life, but I don't know what the problem is, that's totally fine. So question one that I want you to ask yourself, if this is where you're finding yourself, is what are you hungry for? And I think that 90% of the time when you ask this question to someone who self-identifies as being stuck in life, their answer is going to be nothing. And that is the entire problem. That's the whole thing right there. That's not part of the problem. That is why you're stuck. If you are not hungry for something in an intense, visceral, palpable way, you're not going to be pushing your life forward because you're not going to have the motivation to. The single most valuable thing that we can have in life is motivation. It is more important than knowledge, than skill, than ability. If you have all of those things, but you're not motivated to put any of them to use, you're going to get absolutely nowhere. And what motivates us to act is hunger, is desire, is wanting something and perceiving a chasm between where we are and where that thing that we want is. And if we don't perceive that chasm anywhere, guess what happens? A lot of nothing. Our lives stagnate, we fail to learn, we fail to grow, we fail to push ourselves, and we end up just kind of spinning our wheels doing the same thing over and over again. Now, there are many ways to be hungry. You can be mentally hungry, you can be spiritually hungry, you can be emotionally or intellectually hungry. And if you're feeling like you're none of those things, it's probably because you're already full up on junk food. And this is something that I actually see a lot of ENFPs struggling with because we are so addicted to the feeling at times of self-growth and self-awareness and self-development that we aren't always distinguishing whether we're doing real growth or whether we're doing pseudo-growth. So let's say that you have a lot of shallow or surface level relationships with people who aren't really challenging you or pushing you or who aren't really providing new perspectives in your life, but they're filling some need, whether it's for comfort, whether it's your own wanting to avoid your inner world, right? I'm very guilty of that. When I want to avoid what's truly happening inside, I surround myself with people who are completely and totally outward facing and who also don't want to go inward. And that keeps it really, really easy to not do the work that you know you actually need to do internally. So maybe it's relationships that aren't really getting to the core of what you need out of relationships. Maybe you are working a job that's paying your bills, or even that you've become exceptionally good at, but that no longer speaks to you or that no longer really, really excites you in the way that it used to. And I think that this is, again, something that ENFPs really have to watch out for. We love the learning process, so we have a tendency to go all in on something and get really good really fast and then plateau. And once we hit that plateau, the problem is that that's often the point where, let's say it's a job, you're earning a lot of money, you're good at what you do. If it's a relationship, things are functioning pretty smoothly, you have a routine down, and we try to deny our own need for novelty and change. If you are denying that need because your ego cup is so full that you're worried about it spilling over if you make the slightest change, you're gonna start dying a slow and painful death inside of your own soul as you try to keep living this life that was once exciting and fun and interesting and now has stagnated, not because something is wrong with you, but because what you loved was the learning process, was the process of being hungry for something and going for it and watching yourself get closer. That is the most exciting place you can be in. So if you arrive at that end goal and you're like, why am I not happy? Well, because your favorite part is over. Your learning, your growth, your change has come to an end, and now you have to make yourself hungry for something else in order to get that feeling back. And that's okay, right? So society kind of tells us that we should always be striving to get to the top of the mountain. And for us, for any dominant types who are obsessed with the growth and development process, the top of the mountain is the most boring part. You look at the view for 3 seconds, you're like, nice, cool. And now, guess what it's time to do? Descend that mountain, find the next one. That's where it's exciting for you. And it's a scary thing to do because a lot of the time, getting hungry for something means allowing room in your system for that hunger to develop. So it might mean taking a step back from those relationships that aren't necessarily growing you anymore, carving out time for yourself within a partnership to do more independent growth work, taking a bit of a step back from the career that you've become really good at to start honing and fine-tuning some new interests. It's gonna mean losing something. And I think that when we're stuck, we often stay stuck because we don't want to lose anything that we have in order to gain something new, but it doesn't work like that. You're gonna have to lose a little bit of comfort, a little bit of stability, maybe a little bit of prestige or recognition, a little bit of ego and pride in order to figure out what that next thing that's really gonna fill you up is, and you have to be ready to do that. But we're gonna talk more about what that looks like later on. Question number 2, I would encourage you to ask yourself if you're feeling stuck in life, is are you putting pressure in the wrong places? So as ENFPs, once again, we kind of get in the flow of something, our introverted sensing internalizes what works and what doesn't. And by the way, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say terms like NE, FI, TE, SI, those are the ENFP's cognitive functions. I do run a 6-week ENFP Soul Bootcamp course where we go over all of the characters that govern the inside of your mind and how they operate behind the scenes to help you learn, grow, interact, make decisions, reflect, observe your own psyche. And you can find that bootcamp at www.heidipriebe.com. The link is in the description to this video. But as I was saying, introverted sensing tends to internalize what works, and then our natural tendency when we feel stuck or overwhelmed or like something isn't working the way it used to is to just triple down on that thing, right? So go harder and harder in that area. And I was thinking about this the other day in relation to this memory I have of driving down this road in rural Guatemala. I was visiting with a couple of friends, and we were going to this house on the coast, and the bus skidded off of the side of the road a little bit, and it went into this ditch. And the back wheel sunk down into the ditch, and it was covered in sand, and it seemed like it was going to be a really easy thing to just kind of get the bus out of the ditch. So we all got out. It's like the middle of the night, it's dark, we got lost along the way, we're all frustrated, and we're like 5 minutes from the house. We're so close. So we're like, okay, We'll just get to the back of the bus and we will push. And we did that, and what happened was that the bus ended up going even deeper into the sand. So all of the effort we were exerting, because the bus's wheel was pointed downwards, we were actually pushing the bus further and further into the dirt the more that we applied pressure. Oh, God. And our lives, when we're feeling stuck, kind of work like this. If we were going in one direction that was making us stuck, because the law of diminishing returns came into play, maybe we were on a high for a little bit, and then what we were doing started feeling less and less fulfilling or exciting or giving us the returns that we wanted, our impulse is to push harder, when what we actually need to do is take a step back and reevaluate the situation and create a strategic plan for what happens next. Now, as ENFPs, this is not something that we naturally love to do. The part of the brain that really likes strategic planning is more related to introverted intuition, or in some aspects, introverted thinking, both of which are cognitive functions that we do not favor at all. They're right in the bottom of our cognitive stacking. We don't love going there. But the fact that we don't love going there means we often get ourselves in these situations where we're applying pressure in the wrong areas. And once again, in the ENFP Soul Bootcamp, we talk a lot more about how introverted intuition and introverted thinking, as well as our other two shadow functions, extroverted sensing and extroverted feeling, show up in the ENFP's psyche and how you can harness them to help you support your dominant four cognitive functions, not to replace them, because that's never going to work. But we do have to have a base awareness of them in order to use them effectively.
Yeah, I've been looking over the data that SI collected, and it actually arranges itself quite meaningfully. Happiness for the ENFP is predicted not by travel itself, but by the presence of a meaningful, close-knit community, the availability of new physical adventures, and an abundance of new fantasies.
Are you trying to tell me that I can't fix every single problem I've ever had by just getting on a plane and going to Patagonia?
That's more or less it, yeah.
Where we need to start using introverted intuition is in these situations where we find that we are spinning our wheels. What we probably need is a strategic plan out of the mud. We need to step back, observe our situation, observe how we got into that situation, and also figure out which small, methodical changes are going to put us back on the right track. So that day we were stuck in the mud in Guatemala, what we ended up doing was getting a plank of wood, putting it underneath the wheel of the car, and then we were able to push the car out of the mud because there was a ramp that was pushing it forward in the right direction. And what you need to do when you're feeling stuck as an ENFP or as any type is figure out what your ramp is. So where have you started going downhill? Where has that law of diminishing returns come into play for you? And in those moments, what we have to do is stop putting pressure on our lives completely, as much as humanly possible, and I'm really serious about this. For myself, I'm self-employed, so I have a bit of a different situation, but when I feel like I'm spinning my wheels professionally, I stop working, and I get really quiet with myself, and I really look at my situation, and I go, what do I dread doing every day? What is boring for me now that used to be exciting that I can no longer bring the same spark to? What do I truly just not want to do anymore? Where is the law of diminishing returns coming into play for me? And every single time I get really quiet and really honest with myself and ask myself that question, I get an answer. And when I get rid of that thing in my life, guess what happens? A little bit of hunger opens up. A little bit of curiosity, a little bit of time frees up that I can now use to research or to connect with people or to think about a new topic or a new side hobby that's really interesting to me. And guess what happens when I have that little bit of hunger? I start moving in a different direction. You cannot apply pressure and set up a ramp at the same time. It's not going to work. You have to give yourself a break energetically, emotionally, mentally. Take a step back from whatever it is that you've been trying so damn hard at. Let it breathe and then figure out what needs to change. It will feel terrifying because not being in constant motion is not natural for us as ENFPs. We like to move very quickly, but it is absolutely imperative to figuring out our next better route forward. There's this author named Judy Hollis, who I reference a lot, who wrote a book called Fat is a Family Affair, where she talks about how eating disorders are both born and healed within family systems. And she says at the beginning of the book, I'm going to give you a solution to your problem with food addiction. And the solution is going to take you probably about 5 years. And most people who I give this solution to immediately go, I don't want the 5-year solution, give me the 5-week solution, give me the 5-month solution. And her response is always, 5 years are going to pass whether you take this solution or not. If you're 35 right now, you're going to be 40 in 5 years. So you can be 40 with this problem eternally solved for you, or you can be 40 with this problem still active for you because 5 years ago, you chose the quick fix that didn't give you lasting results. But that time's gonna pass whether you choose to do it in a meaningful and intentional way or not. And that's something that can be difficult for us to remember as ENFPs because we like to fix the problem right now, right? It feels so good when we feel like we've cracked this equation, I've figured out the solution, and now I can just implement it right away. But there are a lot of parts of our lives where slow, methodical movement towards the place we want to be is really, really important. And what it takes to get there is slowing down, examining the introverted sensing habits that we've put into place, and figuring out, am I putting pressure on any of these habits in a way that's driving me deeper into the dirt? And if so, how can I set up a ramp of new habits that are going to provide me with an upwards trajectory out of this ditch so that whether it's 5 weeks, 5 months, or 5 years from now, I'm in a very different place than I'm in today because I'm applying pressure in the right area. The automated habits that are currently running my life that I'm constantly applying pressure to are taking me somewhere better, not somewhere worse. Question number 3, I would encourage everyone to ask themselves when they're in a situation where they feel stuck, is which of my problems are actually solutions to deeper problems? I promise you, this question, if you ask yourself honestly and answer it honestly, will completely and totally change your life for the better. I am of the absolutely firm belief that nobody gets addicted to anything. And when I use the word addicted, I'm not just talking about drug and alcohol addicts. I'm talking about addicted to relationships, addicted to jobs that are no longer working, addicted to certain lifestyle preferences, addicted to making money, addicted to online shopping, addicted to watching TV, addicted to self-improvement. There are a million things that it's so easy for us to get completely fixated on and lose the spirit and joy and curiosity that is inborn to our experience of life because we are completely consumed by these other things, and those other things are actually solutions to deeper problems in our lives. If something were only ever bad, we would not do it. That's not how the brain works. That's not how reward pathways work. Reward pathways in our brain respond to stimuli that is pleasurable in some way. So we are motivated to act on what we believe is going to make us feel something positive. So let's say you are in a bad relationship that you really want to get out of, but for some reason you just can't figure out how to leave. Okay, figure out what is the positive feedback loop that I'm in this relationship. So what am I so addicted to? What do I love so much about this bad situation that I can't seem to extract myself from it? What problem is it solving for me? Maybe you have low self-esteem and you believe no one else is ever going to love me. So even though I'm not happy in this relationship, it is solving the problem of the way that I feel about myself. I feel good knowing that this person loves and wants to be with me. Until you can find a way to solve that problem in a different way, you are going to stay in that relationship because it's the quickest and easiest fix for the underlying problem of low self-esteem. Or this could be a professional situation. Let's say you're in a career where you're no longer interested or motivated or inspired, or you're studying something that you don't really care about. Okay, what are you getting out of that situation? There's a really good book called How We Change and 10 Reasons Why We Don't by Ross Ellenhorn. I've talked about it on this channel before, but it's fantastic. And it goes over exactly this, how to figure out why you're still where you are, even though mentally you think, I really want to be somewhere else and I can visualize it, but I can't seem to motivate myself to move towards it. It's probably because you're discounting how much you're getting out of the situation that you're in. If that bad job is giving you security and stability and a sense of normalcy in your life, and those things are really important to you, those are some of your core needs, you're not going to leave until you find a much better way to satisfy all 3 of those needs. If you're drinking a bottle of wine every single night because you have trauma from your childhood that you haven't processed or unpacked, and you feel this chronic low-grade depression and the only way to relieve it is to reach for substances, and I've been there, no judgment, I know, it's going to be really hard to motivate yourself to change until you're dealing with the discomfort that you feel that's causing you to reach for that alcohol, for that unhealthy relationship, for that phone to get the Instagram likes, or for that second piece of cake that you don't really want to eat. Any bad habit that you have is absolutely a solution to another problem, whether that problem is practical or emotional in nature, often emotional. And until you're looking at that problem, until you're looking at what's under the surface, your surface level behaviors will absolutely persist. And if you quit them, a different surface level behavior will pop up as a consequence of that core problem. In order for me to quit eating and drinking emotionally, both of which I'd been doing since about 12 years old, I had to do really, really deep work on healing my attachment style because I was constantly turning to substances to comfort me because I didn't know how to comfort myself, because I was not in touch with my true emotions, because I didn't know what was going on for me under the surface. I had to learn that, and I had to learn to respond to that. And once I did, I stopped wanting surface level comfort because I had the deep comfort that I was seeking. But if I'd only looked at food or only looked at alcohol as the problem, I would never have arrived there. I would never have figured out what those things were a solution to and solved that problem. And once you solve that problem, you don't really want the surface level solutions anymore. They don't feel as good as the deeper one. And so this is a really, really important question to ask yourself. Question number 4 is one that I stole from Gabor Mate, who is an absolutely brilliant addictions and trauma specialist. If you've never heard of him or if you've never read any of his stuff, please pause this video, go research Gabor Mate, and consume everything that he has ever written. I wonder about his type a lot. My leading guess is INTJ, but I'm not sure. I think he's got FI and TE. I don't know in what order. My second guess would maybe be INFP. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But anyways, I was watching a documentary starring him called The Wisdom of Trauma that was put out this year. And in the documentary, he's interviewing this woman who was talking about how she had really crippling depression and she had a lot of guilt over that depression. And she felt like she was failing herself and the people around her. And he sat down with this woman and was talking to her about how depression can call us to realize what's going wrong in our lives, can call us to go inward and process things that we really need to process. It can cause us to realize what's important to us, what's no longer working for us, and where we need to go next in our healing process. And he was saying that if you look at depression that way, depression is not a failure. Depression can be a success. Your depression can be the thing that pushes you out of what wasn't working and into what is. And I remember at the time that I was watching this video, I was not working. I had completely and totally stopped doing any sort of freelance or independent work because I was so focused on doing trauma healing, and it was taking truly 100% of my time, 100% of my energy, 100% of what I had in me to give. And as a result, I was going into debt. And I was very stressed about that. And I had about 1 million solutions for getting out of it. And I would not encourage anyone. Truly, I'm not encouraging you to go into debt. I want to make that clear. I knew that I had the resources to get out of this the second that I wanted to. I have connections in my field. I'm a freelancer. I can hop very quickly back into the workforce. But I remember just asking myself, instead of panicking about how to get out of debt, what if I asked myself the question, what would make this debt a success? What would make the fact that I put rent for this month on my credit card worthwhile? And the answer very clearly came to me. If you came out of this period with better coping mechanisms, with more self-awareness, with some deep work having been done on all of the traumas and challenges and areas of your psyche that are not functioning properly that you've been putting off for almost 30 years. If you could do that with this time, the debt would be a giant success. And that's what I did for a couple of months. I woke up every single day and I read from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. I went to therapy multiple times a week. I joined free self-help groups and I found friends on the internet who wanted to do work with me, and I did as much work as I could during the time that I had. And what allowed me the permission to do that was telling myself, not you're failing, you're failing, you're failing, but you are making this consequence successful. What would make this depression, this addiction, this debt, this loneliness, this failed relationship a success is one of the best questions you can ask yourself in order to reframe the difficulties that you're going through to help you understand what bigger role they can play in your life. When you get a headache because you're dehydrated, that headache is a success if it encourages you to drink water and rehydrate your body. And the same can be said for a lot of the emotional symptoms that come up, including feeling stuck and unmotivated and like you're spinning your wheels, because they can draw your attention to the areas that you really need to do deep work on in order to come out the other side heading somewhere better. Question number 5 is a question that is so close to my heart because it's the question that I have not asked myself for most of my life, and I think not asking myself this question has almost 100% of the time been the reason why I've stayed stuck. And this question, I believe I stole from a David Whyte poem. I'm pretty sure that's where I got it from. But it is, what are you holding on to that's already gone. As an ENFP, we have introverted sensing and introverted feeling, and those are two of the damn most sentimental functions that you can have in your stacking, and we've got them together, ENFPs and INFPs. And what that means is that we have a tendency to hold on to the memory of good things long after they are gone, and convince ourselves that we can recreate those things in the future and they will feel every bit as good and as exciting and as interesting as they once did. And that's not how anything works. Everything that happens to us in life happens within a given context and a given system of other events. And as soon as some of those things change, we can no longer perfectly recreate the old situation. We just can't do it. It's not an option that's available to us. But because we're not natural systems thinkers as ENFPs, again, introverted thinking is in our shadow function stacking. It's not in our dominant stacking, and introverted thinking really does help think in systems. We tend to take isolated events and go, oh yeah, I can recreate that. If I can just do this one thing again, if I can just bring this one thing from the past into my future, it will feel as good as it did in the past. And there are so many forces working against us, right? But that is our natural impulse, is to cling so tightly to what we love and what we don't want to lose. And a lot of the time we are clinging tightly to something that we no longer even have the capacity to recreate, even if we put 300% of our energy into it. Maybe we could create something similar but new, but we can't recreate the past. That's gone. Doesn't matter how hard you deny it. The denying of it is only going to keep you stuck and keep you from moving into the future effectively. So maybe you're in a relationship that once felt really, really amazing and it doesn't feel so amazing anymore. Maybe you are working a job that you used to feel so inspired by and passionate about, and now it feels kind of dull and boring. And until you grieve what you've lost, you cannot find a better way forward. You just can't, because you'll still be holding on to this ghost of what you once had, right? You have to let it go. You have to accept that something once really, really, really mattered to you, and it's not coming back in the same form. That relationship might never be as exciting or as filled with opportunities as it once was. That job might never feel as intellectually stimulating or as successful as it once did. That ghost of what's gone, whether it's a relationship that's no longer working, a job that's no longer fulfilling, a friend group that you no longer belong with, a phase of your life that's now past its expiration date, that's taking up room in your metaphorical stomach, right? But it's not actually providing you any nutritional value. And what happens when you finally allow yourself to grieve and let go of that thing and accept that what's gone is gone and it's not coming back, you get hungry again. You now have a chasm between where you are and what you want in your life. Allowing yourself to let go of what's gone gives your psyche room to welcome in new things, because it's not preserved by trying to hang on so tightly anymore. And when you have that hunger again, as scary as it is to make room for, you will know the next step forward, because your hunger will tell you where it wants to go next. You'll know. There is this Buddhist system called the 5 wisdom energies that's actually kind of like a personality system, where they talk about these 5 different energies that you can have in your life. So there's the energy of intellect and knowledge and understanding. There's the energy of exploring and collecting and relishing. And there's all these different types of energies that you can be in mentally. But the most important energy that you need to return to over and over again in your life is the Buddha energy. And the Buddha energy sits right in the middle, and it allows you access to all of these other energies. And what the Buddha energy is the energy of nothingness, of just allowing yourself to be still and unmoving, and to not grasp for anything or want for anything, but to just allow there to be space for other things to emerge inside of your consciousness. So let's say that you've been really, really focused on achieving, on growing, on personal development, and you feel like you're spinning your wheels. Okay, stop. Go back to your Buddha energy. Ask yourself, what can I let go of? What is no longer serving me? Maybe it's time to move into another energy. Maybe it's time to refine the energy that you've been working on. Maybe it's time to logically map out a completely different route forward. But until you're allowing yourself to sit in that space of stillness and to humble yourself enough to recognize what's no longer working for you, you are going to stay stuck. That's a guarantee. Time does not change this. You can stay stuck your whole life. Tragedy might come along and force you into a position of humility and force you into a situation where you have to change something because you've gotten so deep into the mud that it is now explicitly clear you can't stay there. But you don't have to let it get that far. You know when you're stagnating. You know when you're not on the path that you're meant to be on anymore. Because when you're on the path that you're supposed to be on, you will have the energy for it. You will wake up every morning and be curious and interested about the day that's in front of you, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpleasant. You'll feel like this is my kind of unpleasant, right? This is the kind of challenge that I like to take on even when it feels excruciatingly difficult. It's never going to be easy all the time, but you know the feeling between a difficult climb in the right direction and going nowhere. But to figure out what mountain is next, you sometimes have to descend into the valley. And you know what? It's a great place to be. It feels so much better than standing at the top of the mountain wondering why you're so damn bored of the view. I promise you. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about that. This video felt very personal to me because these are all of the really hard questions that I've had to ask myself at times when I would rather die than answer them. And it wasn't until I went there that things started really changing for the better in my life. And I'm really curious to hear what kind of answers these sparked for you guys. If you want to share them in the comments with me, I would absolutely love to read through those and just connect with you guys about wherever you're at and whatever it is that you're dealing with. And just another reminder, the last project that I did feel super excited about working on was the ENFP Soul Bootcamp course that I created in 2020. It is a 6-week program that just encourages you to really get in touch with your inner self and help you make better decisions and move forward confidently in the directions that you actually want to go in life. And that bootcamp program can be found on my website at www.heidipriebe.com. I'll put the link in the description. I also run one for INFPs that's very similar. So if that's speaking to you right now, I will see you there. And otherwise, I will see you back here sometime soon. Okay, I love you.